Hello, you lovely, lovely people. I haven't been around for a while because a few things going on, with the passing of the relation of my wife and things like that. I've been a bit tied up lately. So anyway, I thought today I would tell you the story of me not being allowed into America at this particular time. I'll tell you anyway. What it was, my friend, my British friend, he married an American girl, and he was living in America. They tried living in England, and she didn't like it very much. So they moved to America, and I always kept saying to her, I'll come over and see you. I'll come over and see you. And I didn't, but this particular time I thought, I've got to do it because he keeps on about it. So bought the tickets, and they were quite expensive. And I think I flew from Heathrow, I think. And I was going to Missouri, but I had to have a connecting flight in Atlanta, in Georgia. Or Georgia in Atlanta. Anyway, the day of the flight came, and one of my friends took me to the airport, right? And he said to me, when you come back, because I was going to stay there for like 3 weeks. He said, when you're coming back, just phone me up and I'll pick you up at the airport. I said, okay, mate. His name was John, the guy who took me there, my friend who was driving the car. Okay, mate, thank you very much. So they're at the airport, having a few drinks in the bar like you do, before going to the gate. Got to the gate, all of this, and I thought, the address. Oh, the address. What's my friend's address? Just in case they ask. I thought, no, they won't ask. So, I knew I had the address somewhere. Tried calling my friend, sending messages, nothing. By this time, I had a few drinks, down to the gates, to take off. Anyway, I'm on the plane now, right? And I was sat next to this Chinese guy. And this Chinese guy was drinking wine. And I think we were about an hour into the flight. And I was drinking just beer, from that beer. And so this Chinese guy said, do you want some wine? I said, yeah, I'll have some wine. It would have been, it would have been rude not to join him. So for the whole flight, right, we drinking wine, and he's just getting a bottle of wine from the flight attendants. Yeah, wine. Yeah, just leave the bottle. So we really into this wine. I'm drunk, proper drunk, and the flight attendant's coming around because it's getting time for landing. I don't know how long the flight was. Was it 7 or 8 hours? Can't remember. Anyway, they're coming around with the landing cards. Got my landing card. I thought, the address. It's Missouri. I just put Missouri in there, right? USA, right? Right. Off the plane, going through to the immigration. Now, I had a little feeling. I thought, it's a bit dodgy not having an address. And you can see all the immigration officials. And I saw this small bloke with the grey hair, and he looked friendly. I thought, I hope I get him. I did get him. Look, worst thing ever. Went up there, passport. Trying not to, I'm standing straight, but I'm wobbling a bit, you see. And I said, I'm sorry if I'm a bit tired. I said, it's been a long flight. And of course, he must have smelled the alcohol in my breath. But the immigration officials, they must get that all the time. So he said, a landing card. I said, yes. I thought, oh shit, he's asked for a landing card. Give him that. And he looked at that and said, you going to Missouri? I said, yeah, yes, sir, yeah. He said, but where are you going? I said, I'm staying at my friend's house. He said, yeah, but where does your friend live? I said, he lives in Missouri. He said, yeah, but has he got an address? I said, yes, he has got an address, sir, but I said, I don't know what it is. So he said, so you've flown, this is what he said, so you've flown all the way from England to here and you don't know where you're staying? I said, yeah. I said, I'm staying in America. And he's, now you can imagine him now, can't you? And there's a big queue of people behind me, right? There's a big queue of people. So he said, you must have an address where you're staying. I said, yes. I said, I know that. But I said, if I can contact my friend, I said, I can get you the address. And he said, no. He said, what I'm going to do, he said, I'm going to put your passport and this landing card with Missouri, USA on it, in a folder. And he said, you're going to go for a second interview. I thought, whoa. Okay, sir, okay. This guy come over, God's honest truth. And he said, this way, sir. Very polite. Walked out, and it wasn't far. There was this room. And I thought it was just going to be like a little interview room. No, it wasn't. There was lots of people in this room. And he said, take a seat. So I took a seat, and there was this girl sat there. And I said, where are you from? She said, I'm from Panama. I said, what are you doing here? In here? She said, they sending me back. I said, is this the room where they send you back? And she said, well, I don't know, but she said, I'm being sent back. Oh, okay. Anyway, Stephen Smith? Yes, yeah. This way. And it was this rather large lady, and she was a supervisor, right? So she says, I understand, sir, that you haven't got an address. I said, I haven't got an address, ma'am. I said, I have got it, but I don't know where it is. And she said, well, you can't come into America without an address. I said, well, I'm going to Missouri. I said, I said, I'm staying with like a friend, a British guy. I said, can I call him up? And she said, no, you can't. And I said, he will confirm the address where I'm staying. And I think they had it in for me, I think. And I'm still thinking now that they're not going to send me back. So I said to her, I said, what's the problem? I said, I'm British, you're American, we've got a great history of the wars that we fought together, World War I, World War II, where you helped us, and things like that. Wrong thing to say. Her opus, and it changed. Oh, I thought, it changed. And she said, I'm going to refuse you entry. I said, you can't do that. She says, yes, I can, and I am. I said, but why? They did. They would not let me in. And there wasn't a stamp in my passport. She just wrote in the middle pages, on 2 pages, refuse entry. And there was a number, 103, 102, can't remember. And the date. So she said, I said, what happens now? And she said, I said, so I can't call a friend, just to say that, I'm not going to be there now because you refused me. No. So I had to stay there. And she said, you'll stay here until we get you on a flight back to your country of origin, the UK. So I had to stay there for about 5 or 6 hours, waiting for a plane to take me back to England. Now, when this plane was ready, I was the last one on it because they had to wait and see if there was a spare seat. There was these 2 guys, two now, taking me down. I wasn't handcuffed because I wasn't arrested. They had to get my cases as well because obviously I wasn't going to Missouri, so the connecting flight, they had to wait for my cases to get them off. So one of them's carrying, he's rolling my case. I said, I'll have that. He said, no, sir, it's okay. I will take that. On the plane, right, everyone sat looking at me because I've come on with these 2 big security guards and they all looking at me, right? I said, it's okay. I said, I haven't done anything wrong. I said, I've been refused entry. And this security guard said, quiet, to me. I said, I'm just telling these people because they don't know what I've done. I said, I'm just telling these people that I've been refused entry because I didn't have an address. Oh, God, it got worse. They give my passport to the air or to the flight attendant. And then they went. I was sat down. Oh, they came with me till I was sat down and buckled up in my chair. Everyone's looking and whispering. Oh, God, it was terrible. Then the plane took off, and the flight attendant come round, and she said, "Drink, sir." I said, "Yeah, can I have a brandy, please?" She said, No, you can only have a soft drink. Tea, coffee, or soda drinks." I said, "What?" And she says, "Because you've been air refused entry, I've been told by the guards that you are on an American airline. It was Delta Airline, I think. And you can't have any alcoholic drinks." I thought, for fuck's sake, I can't fucking believe this. Because I've got to sit here all the way back, being refused entry into America, British, because I didn't have an address and I can't have a alcoholic drink. No, sir. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, got back into the airport, called my friend up who took me there originally to the... "John," he said, "yeah." He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm fucking back at the airport, aren't I?" He said, "What?" I said, "I'm back in the airport." "What airport?" I said, "Gatwick Airport." I said, "What's happened?" I said, "They've refused me entry. They've sent me on a plane back to here." No way. I said, "Yeah, they have." And he's... Do you know, because of the time differential, I'd flown to America, right? Been there for 5 hours, flown back, and it was still the same day. I got back, it was still the same day. Ooh. Oh my goodness. Anyway, he come to pick me up, and I was the laughing stock then. Everyone was saying, "Don't ever fly with this, man. You get refused entry into any country." But that's what it was, people. Because I didn't have an address. And I think because the guy didn't like me very much, I think. Because of I wasn't rude, I was very polite. I was, "Yes, sir, no, sir." But I think he just took a disliking. So, the moral of the story, if you fly into any country, always make sure you've got that address in your hand. I didn't. And so what I have to do, or what I did do, because they said to me, "You will not be able to get back into America now unless you go to the embassy in London and apply for a visa," which I did. I got a 6 months visa. And even the guy doing the interview in London in the embassy, he couldn't believe it. He said, "You was unlucky." He said, "You got a bad guy there." I said, "I got a bad guy and a bad big woman who was doing the second interview." And I said to him, I said, "I just can't understand why they were like that." And he said, "No," he said, "sometimes they are." And he said, even with this visa, and it's like a big paper thing and they just like put it in your passport. He said, even with this visa, they can still refuse you entry. I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, they can." Do you know what? I never went back to America. I flew there and stood on the ground in the airport for a while and stayed there for a little bit, but I never actually went into where I was going to, and I never will. I just got no fancy for it now, and I'm scared. I'm scared because I'm on fire there, aren't I? But that's the first time I've ever been asked for an address. Ever. I think here when I come to the Philippines, oh yeah, I think then it was landing card and I did have an address, but they didn't even look at the landing card. But yeah, lesson learned, people, isn't it? It's a lesson learned. It's the funeral tomorrow of the auntie of my wife. So tomorrow we will be there. Cost a lot of money, this 9 days. It's cost a lot of money because I've been sending it. I haven't sent a lot, but I've been sending something as a contribution towards the what they do of a night time, this vigil, the biscuits and the bread and coffees, teas, alcohol probably. But yeah, it's over now. I don't begrudge it because death in the family, you can't begrudge that. But yeah, I thought because I haven't put a video out for a while, have I? A week or something, because of everything that's been going on. So yeah, I'm back on track, or I'll be back on track after tomorrow when this funeral's over. So people, lesson learned: don't go anywhere without that address. And you probably don't. It was me, Mr. Stupid, but I paid the price. Thank you, people. Thank you for stopping by, and whatever you're doing, do it well. God bless you all. Bye bye.